Hello everyone, in today's video, we will explore a shocking case that left a lasting impact on the public in Hong Kong. There is a small island here called Ap Lei Chau, covering only 1.3 square kilometers. Despite its small size, the island is home to tens of thousands of people, making it the most densely populated island in the world. In Cantonese, Ap Lei Chau means duck tongue, because its long, narrow shape resembles that of a duck's tongue, which is how it got its name. This is the story of Vu Hue Ngoc, a beautiful and promising 25-year-old young woman who paid the ultimate price her life in an unimaginable tragedy. From a chance encounter to heartbreaking events, this case not only shocked many, but also left behind profound lessons about love, greed, and betrayal. Stay tuned to learn more about the details and motives that led to Vu Hue Ngoc's tragic end, as well as what happened to the perpetrator. Prepare yourself for a dramatic and emotional story. We will now turn back the clock to October 27, 2010. October 27, 2010. It was a Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. A few anglers went fishing at Ap Lei Chau beach. Under the bright sunlight, the sea breeze gently blew across the sand. The sea surface sparkled with gold. But in contrast to the idyllic scene near Loi Nam Beach, the fishermen discovered an object drifting on the sea. Out of curiosity, they put down their fishing rods and went closer to check. The scene before their eyes terrified them. It was the body of a woman in a half-naked state floating in the water. After calming down, they immediately called the police. Police quickly arrived at the scene and brought the victim's body to shore. The victim was a female, about 1.6 meters tall, about 25 years old. The victim was lying face down in the water, back facing the sky. The upper body was wearing a gray shirt, the lower body was naked. There were wounds on the arms and neck, but not serious. The victim was likely hit by a reef while drifting at sea. That evening, images of the incident were reported in the press. The next day, some people came to identify her. The police identified the victim as Vu Hue Ngoc, 25 years old. The day before, Vu Hue Ngoc's parents received a phone call from their daughter's colleague asking why she didn't go to work. The two were extremely confused. They said that their daughter didn't sleep at home last night, but called to let them know. All day long, her parents tried to contact their daughter without success, until at night, when they watched the news on TV, they were shocked to realize that the girl's body in Ap Lei Chau looked very similar to their daughter. At this time, they suspected that something bad had happened to their daughter. Partly because the victim had just died, her face was only slightly swollen and deformed, along with a scar from a smallpox vaccination on her arm. Her parents were sure that it was their daughter. According to the investigation, Vu Hue Ngoc was born in 1985 from Hue Chau and moved to Hong Kong with her family at the age of 12. She was the eldest of 5 siblings. The family of 7 lived together in Quy Thin Dong village, Quy Dung. Vu Hue Ngoc graduated from the Hong Kong Vocational College of Tourism. After graduation, she changed many jobs within 3 years, worked as an apprentice at a bakery, an administrative staff at a car dealership, etc. Before her death, she worked as an accountant at a company in Sheung Wan and was planning to change jobs. Vu Hue Ngoc was beautiful and had many suitors, but each relationship did not last long, mainly with colleagues she met at work, breaking up after a few months. Her best friend Jenny said, Vu Hue Ngoc always attracted everyone's attention. Many boys were crazy about her. However, she wanted to marry a foreigner and settle abroad, so she paid special attention to foreign men. She often went to Lan Kwai Fong, which was a gathering place for bars, and Vu Hue Ngoc never stopped looking for a suitable boyfriend. In February 2010, Vu Hue Ngoc met a German colleague named Thomas at the company. The two quickly fell in love. After only 2 months of dating, she brought her boyfriend home to meet her parents. She also made their relationship public on social media, using German to write, "I love you," on her personal page to express her feelings for her boyfriend. Thomas also promised to take her to Germany to settle down. However, Thomas was later transferred to Beijing for work, and this relationship ended. Vu Hue Ngoc's dream of settling down abroad seemed to be about to come true, but in the end, it was broken. Too miserable and desperate, she went to a master to have her fortune told, hoping to find advice. The master said that she was destined to be a flirt and advised her to stay pure. If she continued to live a loose life like that, at best she would lose everything. At worst, she would die an untimely death. Vu Hue Ngoc believed the master's words and began to change. Previously, she often went out drinking with friends of the opposite sex until late at night and then had them take her home. After listening to the master, she switched to drinking by herself and taking a taxi home after drinking. However, these changes still could not save her. Vu Hue Ngoc's parents said that on October 26th, after work, their daughter returned home as usual, then went online to chat with friends for a while. Suddenly, she stopped talking and hurried out. Later, they received a phone call from their daughter saying that she went out drinking with friends in Lan Kwai Fong, telling her parents not to worry too much. Unexpectedly, the next time they saw each other, their daughter had already passed away. Vu Hue Ngoc's parents were heartbroken, and they provided the police with some information about Yu Huiyu. Although she had broken up with her German boyfriend Thomas in July of that year, Thomas returned to Hong Kong, and the two rekindled their old relationship. Although Thomas returned to Beijing, Vu Hue Ngoc still maintained a relationship with him. Occasionally making long-distance phone calls, she complained to her parents about her high phone bill, but her words showed that she still had hope for the future. Therefore, the possibility of Vu Hue Ngoc doing something foolish can be ruled out. When she left her home, Vu Hue Ngoc was wearing tight jeans and a loose shirt, but when she was found, the jeans were gone. Usually, a looser shirt is more likely to be swept away by water. Her home is in Kwai Chung, which is north of Lan Kwe Puong, but Ap Lei Chau, where the body was found, is south of Lan Kwe Puong, a 10-kilometer drive away. According to Jenny, Vu Hue Ngoc had an ex-boyfriend named Ahai, who worked as a manager at a convenience store. Through investigation, Ahai told his current girlfriend that he had to work the night shift on the evenings of October 25th and 26th. The police confirmed that he was not at home on those two nights, so there was no possibility of committing the crime. Ahui's current girlfriend also revealed that he had recently been acting strangely, as if he had lost his soul. The police immediately summoned Ahai to the police station to give a statement. He admitted that he still had feelings for Vu Hue Ngoc. Checking the call log on Ahai's phone, the police found that he had met with Vu Hue Ngoc on the evenings of October 25th and 26th. On the first night, she left him hanging, and on the next night, he did not meet Vu Hue Ngoc, so he went out with his friends until the next morning. Ahai's friends also confirmed this to the police. After ruling out suspicions against Ahai, the police began investigating his German boyfriend Thomas. As the victim's parents had said, Thomas and Vu Hue Ngoc had broken up once. During the 2010 World Cup, Thomas returned to Hong Kong and the two got back together. After the World Cup ended in August, Thomas returned to Beijing to work, leaving Vu Hue Ngoc alone in Hong Kong. Despite this, she still missed her German boyfriend. Not only did she spare no expense on long-distance calls, she also saved money to fly to Beijing to visit her boyfriend. However, Thomas was not in Hong Kong on the day of the incident and was not the perpetrator. The police went to Vu Hue Ngoc's home to collect personal belongings, including a computer. Based on the clues, within 2 days, the police summoned nearly 50 people, mostly men, to give statements. Van, a restaurant employee who used to work with Vu Hue Ngoc, felt shocked and regretful when he heard the news of her death. He admitted that during their time working together, he also had feelings for Vu Hue Ngoc and pursued her, but failed. Van said that although he only worked for 3 months and then quit, Vu Hue Ngoc was a cheerful and sociable person, loved by everyone in the restaurant. 3 days after the incident, the forensic report was released. The victim's limbs were stiff, her mouth was foaming, her lungs were swollen and filled with water, indicating that she was still breathing underwater. There were small blood spots on her eyelids, indicating that she had died from strangulation while still alive. This means that her heart was still beating when she fell into the sea, and then she drowned. The time of death was determined to be between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., about an hour before she was discovered by fishermen. Police sent divers to search for Vu Hue Ngoc's belongings along the shore of Ap Lei Chau, but found nothing. Police suspect that Vu Hue Ngoc was murdered elsewhere, and her body was dumped in the sea near Ap Lei Chau. Among the 50 people summoned, one man caught the attention of the police. His name was On Kien Thong, 43 years old, 1.77 meters tall, with a muscular body. He had passed the entrance exam to the police academy and then became a patrol officer. Everyone thought his life would be smooth sailing from then on. Unexpectedly, in his 7th year in the police force, he intended to assault his colleague's girlfriend. Another source said that he was arrested for taking nude photos for blackmail. Whatever the reason, On Kien Thong was expelled from the police force and imprisoned for 10 months. After being released from prison, because of his criminal record, he could not find a job as he wanted. Reluctantly, On Kien Thong had to work as a taxi driver. At that time, taxi driving in Hong Kong was not a low-income job, about 10,000 Hong Kong dollars per month, about 1,273 US dollars at the current exchange rate. But On Kien Thong was not content. He was fined twice for driving while suspended. In order to increase his income, On Kien Thong followed the trend and provided a technology taxi service. Vu Hue Ngoc was one of his regular customers. The reason why the police suspected On Kien Thong was because Vu Hue Ngoc's last call was to him. Between October 26th and 28th, he called and texted Vu Hue Ngoc a total of 4 times. When checking the surveillance camera near the intersection of Linan Road, the police discovered a taxi appearing. After checking the license plate, the police identified the driver as On Kien Thong. The police summoned him to the police station to assist in the investigation. On Kien Thong appeared very sad, crying and saying that he had not been able to contact Vu Hue Ngoc for the past few days, making him very worried about her. He did not expect that he would never have the chance to see her again. The police asked him where he was on the evening of October 26th. On Kien Thong said that he was picking up a customer near Huang Chang Tu that night. However, this statement made the police even more suspicious, because Huang Chang Tu and Ap Lei Chau are located opposite each other, separated by a strait. Therefore, On Kien Thong was fully capable of committing the crime. Perhaps realizing that he had misspoken, On Kien Thong said that Vu Hue Ngoc had called him that night and told him not to pick him up. However, this explanation made him even more suspicious. Sure enough, when searching On Kien Thong's taxi, the police found bloodstains in the car. On Kien Thong explained that he transported dozens of passengers every day, which could have been accidentally left by a passenger. In addition, there was a piece of fabric in the trunk that could have come from the jacket the suspect had worn. However, because the jacket was lost, it could not be verified. Later, the police investigated that, at the beginning of the month, Vu Hue Ngoc went shopping with a friend. This friend liked a jacket, but it did not fit, so Vu Hue Ngoc ended up buying it. The police went to the manufacturer of the jacket and took an identical jacket for comparison. The test results showed that the fabric on this jacket matched the fabric found in the trunk of On Kien Thong's taxi. The DNA test results also confirmed that the blood in the car belonged to Vu Hue Ngoc, along with the video footage from the surveillance camera near the Dai Nam intersection. The police had enough evidence to arrest On Kien Thong. 5 days after the incident, the police found On Kien Thong at a tea house in Kowloon. He was hooded, handcuffed, and escorted to the police station. Faced with a series of undeniable evidence, On Kien Thong confessed to the whole incident. It turned out that this taxi driver and Vu Hue Ngoc, despite an 18-year age gap, had a predestined relationship. 1 year ago, on an evening in November 2009, On Kien Thong met Vu Hue Ngoc for the first time. That day, Vu Hue Ngoc went drinking in Lan Kwai Puong, then took a taxi home as usual. Perhaps it was fate that the taxi driver that day was On Kien Thong. Vu Hue Ngoc got in the car and sat in the passenger seat because she was wearing quite sexy clothes, and there was a strong smell of perfume and alcohol on her body, so On Kien Thong couldn't take his eyes off her. Her beautiful appearance and seductive body made him infatuated. Vu Hue Ngoc was an outgoing person, and as soon as she got in the car, she chatted animatedly with On Kien Thong. She told him that she often went drinking in Lan Kwai Puong at night, and almost every day she had to take a taxi home early in the morning. Hearing this, On Kien Thong took the initiative to offer to pick her up, and unexpectedly, Vu Hue Ngoc happily agreed. The two of them exchanged contact information afterwards. In the next 3 months, On Kien Thong became Vu Hue Ngoc's personal driver. As they became closer and closer, their relationship became closer and closer. At first, Vu Hue Ngoc half-jokingly asked On Kien Thong if he could reduce the taxi fare by 30% for her, and he unexpectedly agreed. In February 2010, they first appeared together, not as a driver and passenger, but as a couple on a date. On Kien Thong said that he fell in love with Vu Hue Ngoc at first sight. He started to pick her up and drop her off at work for free, and every time they went on a date, he would take the initiative to pay for her meals, and sometimes he would even buy her gifts. Although On Kien Thong's financial situation was not good, because of love, he was willing to spend money on Vu Hue Ngoc. If he ran out of money, he would borrow from friends. Coincidentally, Vu Hue Ngoc met her German boyfriend Thomas in February. Since then, she began to have affairs with both men. Actually, On Kien Thong knew that Vu Hue Ngoc already had a boyfriend. He understood that he was just a taxi driver with little money and limited social connections, and could not compare to her official boyfriend. In July of that year, during the World Cup, Vu Hue Ngoc borrowed 10,000 Hong Kong dollars from On Kien Thong to buy household appliances. On Kien Thong took this opportunity to ask her to confide in him once a week. Unexpectedly, Vu Hue Ngoc agreed. On Kien Thong happily transferred money and bank accounts to her immediately. Their relationship became increasingly passionate. From then on, every week they went to secluded places like Wuji Mountain, Qingshuiwan Bay, and Longxiaowan Bay to make love. They even set up a secret code, a mailbox, to refer to confiding in the car. Every time they finished making love, Vu Hue Ngoc would receive 500 or 1,000 Hong Kong dollars from On Kien Thong. This ambiguous relationship lasted for 3 months. During this period, Vu Hue Ngoc repeatedly asked On Kien Thong to borrow money with all kinds of excuses. On Kien Thong got deeper and deeper into this affair, pouring more and more money into Vu Hue Ngoc. He even thought that she would abandon her German boyfriend for him. However, in reality, Vu Hue Ngoc was secretly saving that money to take care of her future life in Germany. Time passed quickly until October 26th. That day, Vu Hue Ngoc asked On Kien Thong to send a letter again. That evening, after picking up Vu Hue Ngoc at Lan Kwai Fong, On Kien Thong drove to Long Ha Lone Bay and stopped at the entrance of a cemetery near Dai Kan Kao village. This place was quiet and deserted, with no one else around. They were very satisfied with this place, so they started to get into the main topic, but unexpectedly, in this deserted place, there were people passing by from time to time. Suddenly a car drove up, startling them. They quickly stopped and sat in the car, chatting. Before they could even put their clothes back on, Vu Hue Ngoc said that her boyfriend Thomas would return to Hong Kong on November 1st. She smiled and excitedly talked about the bright future with Thomas, not paying any attention to On Kien Thong's feelings. At this moment, having just been interrupted by that car, and now hearing that Vu Hue Ngoc was about to leave Hong Kong, he felt extremely frustrated and annoyed. However, that was not the worst thing. Vu Hue Ngoc's next words made On Kien Thong feel like he had been doused with cold water. Vu Hue Ngoc said that this was the last time they were intimate. In order to avoid being discovered by her boyfriend for cheating, she had to end her relationship with On Kien Thong. However, she still owed a sum of money to the bank, and Thomas could not find out about this, so she wanted On Kien Thong to lend her another 10,000 Hong Kong dollars as a breakup payment. Hearing this, On Kien Thong angrily said, "I treated you so well, and I have accumulated debts because of you, and you dare to treat me like this." The two argued fiercely in the car and quickly got into a fight. Taking advantage of the fact that neither of them was wearing pants, Vu Hue Ngoc used his elbow to push hard into On Kien Thong's lower body. Being attacked in a vital area, On Kien Thong was in pain and anger and gradually lost control. He went crazy and beat her. Then he used both hands to strangle Vu Hue Ngoc for 2 minutes until she passed out. On Kien Thong panicked and thought he had killed someone, but in fact, Vu Hue Ngoc was not dead yet. In a panic, he threw Vu Hue Ngoc's underwear, bikini, and blue canvas shoes into the grass on the side of the road, then carried her body and stuffed it into the trunk of the car, drive to the beach near Dai Nam Road landfill, Ap Lei Chau. The car arrived at around 9 p.m., but because there were many people fishing and filming, On Kien Thong did not dare to throw the body into the sea. He returned to the parking lot and waited until the next morning. At 2:30 a.m., On Kien Thong saw that there were no people around, so he jumped into the sea, dropped the body, and quickly drove away. What is noteworthy is that if this time is correct, after being thrown into the sea, Vu Hue Ngoc woke up and struggled for several hours. After committing the crime, On Kien Thong used his experience as a patrol police officer to mislead the investigation agency. He called and texted Vu Hue Ngoc many times to ask where she was in order to create an alibi. According to the description at the scene, On Kien Thong was arrested and walked along the trail to the pier, throwing Vu Hue Ngoc's body and a light blue handbag into the sea. The location of the dump was only 100 meters from where the victim's clothes were found. The police found it difficult to understand that the cemetery on Loi Nam Street, Ap Lei Chau, and the cemetery near Dai Kan Kau Village, Long Ha Lon Bay, were 27 kilometers apart, taking nearly 40 minutes to drive. Why didn't On Kien Thong dump the body right at the cemetery and instead drove to such a faraway place? On Kien Thong said that he was too panicked at the time and his mind was blank. He used to be a patrol police officer stationed at the Hong Kong Coast Guard headquarters, so he was quite familiar with the terrain of this area. Moreover, he knew the procedures and methods of handling cases of the Coast Guard, and he could also ask for information from his former colleagues. On November 2nd, under the guidance of On Kien Thong, the police arrived at the dump site. Sure enough, they found Vu Hue Ngoc's clothes in the grass. After that, the police spent another 3 hours stopping at the crime scene. Vu Hue Ngoc's parents were extremely shocked when they learned that the suspect had been arrested. They pointed at On Kien Thong and said, "Isn't he the man from that day?" It turned out that on the second day after the incident, On Kien Thong took the initiative to call Vu Hue Ngoc's parents and introduced himself as a taxi driver and also a friend of Vu Hue Ngoc, who was looking for her. Afterwards, On Kien Thong even drove a taxi to take Vu Hue Ngoc's parents to the morgue to identify their daughter's body. Vu Hue Ngoc's parents were very touched to see someone care about their daughter so much. In an interview with reporters, they said they felt scared when they thought about how they had sat in the car of their daughter's killer just inches away from him. In Vu Hue Ngoc's parents' hearts, their daughter was a good and filial child who had never made them worry and had always taken care of her younger siblings. They were extremely heartbroken and could not forget the pain of losing their child. Vu Hue Ngoc's younger sister sobbed silently while cleaning up her belongings. On November 3rd, the Hong Kong Procuratorate officially prosecuted On Kien Thong. This day coincided with the day Vu Hue Ngoc was buried. 6 months after the incident, in April 2012, On Kien Thong's trial was held at the Eastern District Court of First Instance. On Kien Thong was charged with murder. At the trial, On Kien Thong learned that Vu Hue Ngoc was not dead when he threw her into the sea. He expressed remorse and cried in court, "That is the greatest regret of my life." However, On Kien Thong did not plead guilty to murder, but only to manslaughter. The prosecutor argued that On Kien Thong did not commit the murder out of anger and rage, but that he was fully aware that Vu Hue Ngoc was not dead when he threw her into the sea. On Kien Thong firmly denied that he thought Vu Hue Ngoc was dead at the time, so he threw her body into the sea. If he had known that she was still breathing, he would definitely not have done so. On Kien Thong's lawyer argued that On Kien Thong had lent money to Vu Hue Ngoc many times, and the two had many financial transactions with each other. Vu Hue Ngoc had a boyfriend but still maintained an ambiguous relationship with On Kien Thong, so Vu Hue Ngoc was also partly at fault in this incident. However, only On Kien Thong and Vu Hue Ngoc know what happened that night. Now that Vu Hue Ngoc is dead, On Kien Thong's testimony is only one-sided, and it is impossible to verify whether it is true or false. It is entirely possible that he made it up. After 8 days of trial, the jury issued a verdict. The defendant, On Kien Thong, committed murder and was sentenced to life in prison. On Kien Thong's fate has been decided. After nearly 3 years, he finally had to pay the price for his cruel actions. The rest of On Kien Thong's life will be spent in prison. However, not many people believe in On Kien Thong's seemingly reasonable testimony. The reason, in addition to the fact that Vu Hue Ngoc is dead and cannot be confronted, may also be because of On Kien Thong's bad reputation from before. The fact that he was once expelled from the police force for committing acts of assault or taking nude photos for blackmail made everyone despise him. After killing Vu Hue Ngoc, he pretended to care and called her parents while disposing of the body and creating an alibi, which was truly cunning and cruel. There were even rumors that On Kien Thong often picked up customers in the Lan Kwai Phuong area, taking advantage of drunk girls to take them home and commit depraved acts. Therefore, On Kien Thong was not as innocent as he said. In this case, from the discovery of the body to the arrest of the perpetrator, it took less than a week. The Hong Kong police's ability to solve the case quickly and effectively has been recognized by the people. Mr. Vuong Duc Tai, the senior inspector in charge of the investigation, said that the court's verdict accurately reflected the truth and the police's investigation efforts. He said that anyone could see that On Kien Thong's testimony and evidence were baseless. The victim may have taken advantage of the suspect, but they were not lovers and may not have even had sex. The case originated from love for money and also ended because of love for money. Hopefully, love for money will no longer be an excuse for impulsive human behavior. The Vu Hue Ngoc case has ended, leaving behind grief for the victim's family and a warning lesson for everyone. On Kien Thong had to pay for his crimes behind prison bars, facing the torment of his conscience every day. As for Vu Hue Ngoc, the young girl with the dream of changing her life, had to lose her life unjustly because of her own mistakes. Perhaps if Vu Hue Ngoc had known how to be content with her current life, knew how to cherish the sincere feelings of those around her, and knew how to protect herself from the temptation of love for money, the tragedy would not have happened. Vu Hue Ngoc's story is not only a painful lesson about deception and illicit relationships, but also a reminder of the importance of cherishing true love and making the right choices in life. If you find the information in the video useful, Don't forget to click like, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on other interesting and meaningful content. We always appreciate your support and look forward to continuing to bring valuable stories and lessons. Please leave your comments in the comments section below, and let's discuss these important issues together. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.